Okay, the question is about Stephen in Acts chapter 7. Did Stephen err when he said that a number of descendants of Jacob were 75? There's some discrepancy in there if you don't read it carefully, but there is none if you do read it carefully. So which shall it be? The careful reader or the uncareful reader? We looked at this wonderful stone that spoke of Joseph's name, Egyptian name, Imhotep, and the granaries, and verified that that's a very plausible indicator that there was a second-hand man, the right-hand man of Pharaoh, that handled the famine and the distribution of grain that people went to Egypt during the time that the Bible says, according to Stephen's recollection, which is accurate in Acts chapter 7, according to that time when the Jacob's family, 75 souls, went to Egypt. Let's look at Acts 7:11, where we left off. Stephen continued his testimony to the Sanhedrin rulers, recalling the famine in Egypt and Canaan, when the fathers of Israel, the sons of Jacob, 75 including family members, found no sustenance, and Jacob sent his sons to Egypt, where he had heard there was grain to purchase. Stephen then noted that the brothers would then become acquainted with their brother Joseph a second time. They didn't know who he was at the time, and Joseph's family would become known to the Pharaoh, whereupon Joseph called for his father Jacob to come with his kindred to Egypt, stipulating 75 souls. Stephen did not err when he testified to this number, as some contend. So Stephen continued his historical narrative, summary of Joseph and the rest of the fathers, the patriarchs of Israel, the 12 sons of Jacob. Now a famine and great trouble came over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and our fathers, in the sense of the sons of Jacob, from whom the 12 tribes of Israel were descended, found no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent out our fathers, first referring to his sons who were the fathers of the tribes of Israel, in the sense of being their firstborns. And the second time Joseph was made known to his brothers, and Joseph's family became known to the Pharaoh. And Joseph, having sent, did call for his father Jacob and all his kindred, with 75, 70, and 5 souls. Note that Stephen did not err with the count of 75, as some contend. Stephen's count, which was from the Septuagint, reflected a different means of counting. The Septuagint is what, in the first century, was largely used by Jesus, the disciples, and the new Christians to quote others were from, because they had the understanding, those people that they quoted to, of Koine Greek, or Greek better than the Hebrew. Now look at the Exodus 1:1-5 in the Masoretic Hebrew text. Now these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob. Now this is the Hebrew text. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Notice that Joseph's name is missing, for he's already in Egypt. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, but Joseph was in Egypt already. That's in the text. Notice that the phrase is now, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob in verse 1, and for Joseph was in Egypt already in verse 5b in the Masoretic Hebrew text. They include counting Jacob and Joseph, respectively, in those total of 70 male descendants of Jacob who came to Egypt, stipulated at the end of verse 5. Now let's look at the Septuagint. These are the names of the sons of Israel that came into Egypt together with Jacob and their father. They came in each with their whole family. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judas, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Nephthalim, Gad, and Asher. It should have been Gad in the first. Septuagint, in verse 5, but Joseph was in Egypt, and all the souls born of Jacob were 75. Okay, we got 5 differences here. 5 difference of 5. Notice that by virtue of the statements, but Joseph was in Egypt, and all the souls born of Jacob, in Exodus 1:5 in the Septuagint Greek text, Jacob was excluded from the count, but Joseph and his descendants were included in the total of 75. Joseph's descendants evidently did include Joseph's 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and their 5 sons who were named in Genesis 46:20 Septuagint, and 2 unnamed descendants implied by the number 9 in Genesis 46:27 Septuagint, most likely sons of Joseph as well. All of these additional descendants of Jacob were already in Egypt, which would add 9 to comprise the total of 75 persons who came with Jacob into Egypt, including those already in Egypt being implied. Although the wording of the Masoretic text in Genesis 46 included Jacob and Huppim, one of Benjamin's sons, Genesis 21, adding 2 to the total, the Masoretic text did not stipulate 7 of the descendants of Joseph who were with him in Egypt, hence resulting in a net difference of 5 less people. That equals 70. The counts corroborate. Although the totals between the Masoretic text and the Septuagint text are different, the key is that they were both accurate within the context of what each stipulated, and both refer to the souls, the males only, who were born of Jacob, who came to live in Egypt. Careful reading. Masoretic text, Genesis 46. So Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And then God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. And so he said, I am God, the Father of your father, God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father, their little ones, their wives, in the 2 carts which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt, Jacob and all of his descendants with him. His sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Now these were the names of the children of Israel, Jacob and his sons who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. The sons of Reuben were Hancock, Hanoch, Palu, and a bunch of names here. We keep reading. Let's get to the numbers. These were the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Paddan Aram, with his daughter Dinah, and all his sons and daughters were 33. And Gad, the sons of Gad were, and he gave the sons of Asher, and the sons of Zilpah. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, were Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Bela were Bela, Becher, and so on. The sons of Rachel were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all, and so on. All the persons went with Egypt, who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. So all the male persons who came from Jacob's body, which was stipulated in this passage, Jacob thus not being counted, are as follows. 33 descendants from Leah, less the one sister Dinah, equals 32. 16 male descendants from Leah's maid Zilpah, 11 from Rachel, and 7 from Bilhah, 66. Now we get to Genesis 46:27, and the sons of Egypt who were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. All the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. Verse 27 implies a grand total of male descendants from the house of Jacob. Hence the total comprises all the male persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt with Jacob, were 66 plus 1, Jacob himself, who is himself of the house of Jacob. Joseph and his 2 sons stipulated in verse 27, Manasseh and Ephraim, who were born in Egypt. Total, 70. Okay. Now look at the Genesis 46, 8-27 Septuagint. Jacob rose up the wall from the oath, and the sons of Israel took up their father and the baggage and their wives and the wagons, which Joseph sent to take them. And they took up their goods and their property, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan. They had into the land of Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him. Now we look at all these sons' names. I'm going to give you the account. Note that WHEREUPON, which is stipulated in the Masoretic text, is the latest born of Benjamin's sons, is not included in the Septuagint text. So, go all the way down to the bottom. Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and the 5 descendants, which was stipulated in verse 20, totaling 7. When compared to the 9 souls stipulated in verse 27, imply that another 2 unnamed descendants of Joseph were included in the final accounting at the end of verse 27 of 75. These additional 2 descendants may have been sons of grandsons. All the souls of the house of Jacob who came with Jacob into Egypt, 75 souls. So this total was evidently intended to be the grand total of Jacob's descendants, including Joseph and his 9 descendants, who were at that time of Jacob's journey to Egypt with Joseph in Egypt. So the intent of verse 27 was that Joseph and his 9 descendants were to be added to the 66 in verse 26. The phrase rendered all the souls of the house of Jacob who came with Jacob implies that this total excluded Jacob, but included Joseph and his 9 descendants. So, here we go. Let's do the count. From Genesis 46, 8 to 26, we begin with all the male descendants who came from Jacob's body, excluding Jacob himself, and including those in Egypt. 32 of the 33 descendants from Leah. 16 from Leah's maid Zilpah. 10 from Rachel, Benjamin's son, WHEREUPON not included. 7 descendants from Bilhah, 66. Then add to this the descendants of Jacob in Egypt, Joseph and his 9 descendants, plus Joseph, plus 9, right? Equals 75. So the counts are accurate in accordance with how they were counted. You have a graph here to look at it. We're counting all of this. So we have a total of 66. The Masoretic text, Genesis 46, 8 to 26, 66. Now, what do we go up here on this column, the second column? Hebrew Masoretic text, males of the house of Jacob, including Jacob and Joseph and his 2 sons who went into Egypt. You include Joseph and his 2 sons. And what's the account then? 70. There you go. 66, including Joseph and his 2 sons who went into Egypt. That was added up to 70. Now we have the Greek Septuagint, 66. And we see who's not counted and who is. See, we have in the graph here who's counted and who isn't. And you'll figure out that they corroborate one another if you follow the strict way that they counted it in each of these passages. Now the Greek Septuagint in that same passage, in Genesis 4, 8 to 27, not counted Jacob, but others are counted. And we go to 75. So note that the Hebrew words in the original text, which are rendered sons and daughters, may refer to a singular or plural number of descendants, which may be 1 son or sons, 1 daughter or daughters, or grandsons, and so on. But it's a Masoretic text, and the Septuagint translation of the Old Testament indicate that Benjamin had multiple descendants while he lived in Canaan. He was not too young to have children, as some contend, for Jacob was an old man when Rachel gave birth to Benjamin, and Benjamin was not kept back from going to Egypt because he was too young to travel, nor too young to have children while he was in Canaan, as some contend. He was held back to stay with Jacob in Canaan because he was the birth child of his favorite wife Rachel. He was Jacob's favorite son now that Joseph was gone. Benjamin was born approximately 5 to 8 years after Joseph. The context, though, through verse 26, includes Benjamin's descendants, implying that those descendants were born while Joseph's family resided in Canaan. The next verse, in Genesis 27, includes those descendants in the group of individuals that journeyed to Egypt from Canaan. Hence, Benjamin's birth was soon after Joseph's in order to have time to bear these children. So the amount of time between Joseph and Benjamin's birth can be surmised by beginning with